Let's talk about red flags, the real ones. Not the ones you see in a meme, not the ones your group chat argues about at midnight, but the actual behavioral patterns that predict whether a relationship is going to work or quietly fall apart. Because here's the problem with how most people talk about red flags today. They've turned it into a stereotype game. This type of person is bad, that label means walk away, this demographic can't be trusted, and honestly, that's lazy. It feels satisfying because it gives you a shortcut, but shortcuts get you burned. Because real people don't fit into 8 neat categories. What actually predicts whether someone is going to be a good partner isn't their age, their income, their religion, or a label on a dating profile. It's how they behave consistently over time, especially when nobody's grading them on it. So today I want to walk you through what genuine red flags actually look like, the behavioral kind, the kind backed by how relationships actually function. So you can stop wasting time sorting people into categories and start paying attention to what actually matters. Before we get into the list, I want to plant one idea in your head, because it's going to come up again and again. A red flag is not a verdict, it's a data point. One red flag rarely tells you everything. What matters is the pattern. Anyone can have a bad day, an off moment, an insecure flash of jealousy. The question isn't, did this happen once? It's, does this keep happening, and does it happen regardless of context? That distinction is going to separate someone going through something difficult from someone who is simply built this way. Keep that in your back pocket as we go. The first behavior worth watching closely is inconsistency between words and actions. This is probably the single most reliable red flag there is, and it's also the easiest one to talk yourself out of noticing, because the words are usually really convincing. Someone tells you they're excited to see you, and then they cancel last minute, repeatedly, with a different excuse every time. Someone tells you they value honesty, and then you catch them in a small lie about something that didn't even need to be lied about. The words are cheap. Anyone can say the right thing in the moment, especially early on when they're trying to make a good impression. What's expensive, what's actually hard to fake, is follow-through. So the practical advice here is simple. Pay far more attention to what someone consistently does than to what they occasionally say, especially in the first few months when everyone is on their best behavior and the real patterns haven't fully surfaced yet. The second one is how someone treats people who can't do anything for them. This sounds like an old cliche, but it holds up remarkably well because it strips away the performance. Watch how a date treats a server, a rideshare driver, a customer service rep on the phone. Watch how they talk about their ex, their coworkers, their family when things get tense. If someone is warm and attentive to you but dismissive, cold, or cruel to people who have no bearing on their life, that's not an inconsistency. That's a preview. Because the version of them you're seeing right now in the honeymoon phase is their best behaved version. If that best version already includes contempt for people who are beneath them in some hierarchy, that contempt doesn't disappear once the relationship is established. It just gets redirected, eventually, toward you. Third, notice how someone handles being told no. This is a big one, and it shows up in small, almost invisible ways long before it shows up in anything dramatic. You say you can't hang out tonight, you're tired. Do they respect that immediately? Or do they push, guilt trip, or go quiet in a way that clearly telegraphs disappointment they expect you to fix? You set a small boundary. Maybe you don't want to discuss a certain topic, or you need space after a long day, and pay attention to whether that boundary is respected the first time, or whether you have to keep repeating it while they slowly wear it down. People who are going to be good long-term partners can hear no and stay emotionally regulated. People who struggle with this often can't, and what you'll notice is a pattern of your boundaries slowly shrinking over time, not because you changed your mind, but because it became easier to give in than to keep holding the line. Fourth, watch for how conflict actually gets resolved, not whether conflict happens at all. This trips a lot of people up, because they think the presence of arguing is itself the red flag. It's not. Every real relationship has friction. Two individual people with different histories and needs are going to disagree sometimes, and that's normal and even healthy. The red flag is in the resolution pattern. Does a disagreement stay focused on the actual issue, or does it snowball into character attacks, old grievances getting dragged back up, or one person shutting down completely and refusing to engage? Psychologists who study relationship stability talk about specific danger signs in how couples fight. Things like contempt, defensiveness, stonewalling, and a refusal to take any responsibility. You don't need the clinical vocabulary to spot it, though. You just need to ask yourself after a disagreement, did we land somewhere better, or did it just end because someone got tired or scared into silence? Fifth, pay attention to how someone talks about their past relationships, but pay attention to the right thing. It's not necessarily a red flag that someone had a bad breakup or a messy ex. That's just life. What's worth noticing is whether they take any ownership at all. If every single past relationship, without exception, is described as entirely the other person's fault, if they were always the victim, always wronged, never once at fault for anything, that's worth paying attention to. Not because bad things don't happen to good people, they absolutely do, but because a complete absence of self-reflection in someone's own story is a strong predictor that you too will eventually become the crazy ex in a story they tell someone else. People who've done real work on themselves can usually name at least one thing they'd do differently. People who haven't tend to have a flawless record and a long list of villains. 6th, notice the pace and pressure around commitment and access. This one can go in two directions and both are worth watching. On one end, you have someone who moves incredibly fast, declaring intense feelings within days, pushing for exclusivity or major life decisions before you've had time to actually get to know them. That speed can feel flattering, but intensity early on is not the same thing as depth, and it's often driven by a need to lock something down before reality has a chance to reveal any incompatibilities. On the other end, you have someone who starts asking for increasing access to your life in ways that feel more like surveillance than intimacy, wanting your location at all times, wanting passwords, needing to know your whereabouts down to the minute, and framing all of it as care or trust building. Genuine closeness is built slowly, through consistent transparency that both people offer voluntarily. It is not the same as one person demanding access as proof of loyalty. 7th, watch how someone handles their own emotions when things don't go their way, particularly around money, stress, or disappointment. Financial stress is real and it hits almost everyone at some point, so struggling financially is not itself a red flag. What matters is the behavior around it. Does a person communicate directly about a tough patch, or do they use guilt, urgency, and manufactured emergencies to extract help without ever being straightforward about what's actually going on? Similarly, watch how someone handles being told they're wrong or being denied something they wanted. Do they recalibrate like an adult, or do they sulk, punish you with silence, or find a way to make you feel responsible for their bad mood? Emotional regulation, or the lack of it, tends to show up in exactly these smaller, lower-stakes moments long before it shows up in anything bigger. 8th, and this might be the most important one, because it's the hardest to notice from the outside. Pay attention to how you feel about yourself after spending time with this person. Not how they make you feel about them, how they make you feel about you. Healthy relationships, even in the early dating stages, tend to leave you feeling more like yourself, more secure, more able to be direct and honest. Unhealthy dynamics tend to do the opposite. You start feeling smaller, more anxious, more like you're constantly managing their perception of you or walking on eggshells to avoid setting something off. If you notice you've started apologizing more, second-guessing your own memory of events, or feeling a low hum of anxiety before every interaction, that feeling is data. Your nervous system is often picking up on patterns before your conscious mind has fully connected the dots. Now here's the part that ties all of this together, and it's the part most red flag content completely skips. None of this works as a checklist you run through on a first date. Trying to catch every possible red flag in the first few hours you spend with someone isn't discernment, it's anxiety wearing a productivity costume. Real information about someone's character reveals itself over time, across different contexts, especially in situations where they're not performing for you. That's why the healthiest approach isn't hypervigilance, scanning every sentence for a hidden meaning. It's patience, paired with attention. Give it time. Watch for patterns, not incidents. And crucially, do your own work alongside this, because someone with a calm, secure sense of self tends to naturally tolerate less dysfunction. Not because they're auditioning partners against a rigid rulebook, but because chaos simply doesn't feel like home to them anymore. And that's really the deeper point underneath everything I've said today. Spotting red flags isn't about becoming suspicious of everyone you meet or turning dating into an interrogation. It's about learning to trust behavior over words, patterns over incidents, and your own internal sense of safety over performance and charm. The goal was never to build a perfect filtering system for other people. It's to build enough self-awareness that you can recognize quickly and clearly when something isn't aligned, and enough self-respect to actually act on that recognition instead of explaining it away. Do that consistently, and you won't need a list of categories to keep you safe. You'll simply notice, sooner than most people do, when something is off, and you'll trust yourself enough to do something about it. If this was helpful, share it with someone who's getting back out there and could use it. Appreciate you watching.